We are so glad that you tuned in and listened, and if you're on YouTube, watched this interview with Executive Vice President of Scouting America, Chuck Brasfeild. We've known Chuck for years and years and years when he was the council professional executive at the Flint River Council in Griffin, Georgia, and at the Camp Thunder there. It's a great camp, and he made it greater. He's a marvelous guy, and we are so impressed by his manly, succinct, intelligent way of describing scouting and the things that he's doing and that the scouts are doing to offer a wonderful program to kids in the United States. And he even mentioned how scouts from other countries come here and, as troops, take advantage of our some of the things that Scouting America has, like Philmont Scout Ranch and the canoe base and the sea base. And if wherever you're listening, I hope you'll spread the word that AIDS to Scouting is here to help you and hopefully to help the whole world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Brasfeild.
Tonight, this is episode 12 of our AIDS to Scouting podcast. And tonight, we're very fortunate to have a friend, colleague, and a very important man in Scouting America these days, Chuck Brasfeild, or Charles Wesley Brasfeild. And he is the executive vice president of Scouting America in charge of operations. And he'll explain what that is. And we're going to talk tonight essentially about everything Chuck wants to talk about. Now, we'll guide him in that because we know it's going to be all about scouting. And we hope that people all over the world will eventually listen to this, to our Spotify or watch this on YouTube, and we'll get something out of it. That's our plan for all of these. Chuck, tell them about yourself a little bit and uh, what your title is and what your background in scouting is.
Well, Walker and Elliott, thank you so much for reaching out and making this possible. So thank you so much in advance. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Um, so I am the executive vice president of council operations, and my team at the national office supports all of the local council executive staff and volunteers, whether it's providing training courses for new executives or making sure that whatever the latest and greatest steps methods are in training for one of our programs is available and handy.
That sounds pretty substantial. How many councils are there in the United States?
Currently, there are 235 councils,
Good
and
grief.
some might argue that that's too many. Some might argue that that's too few. When scouting started, there were probably close to 800. And then over many years, councils consolidated to share resources, camps, and things like that. And probably when I started, I've worked for the Boy Scouts and Scouting America for I'm on my 29th year. And there were around 300 councils then. I don't know what the right number is, but in business, there are reasons to consolidate, lower administrative costs, and share resources. So, I think we'll continue to see consolidation over the years to come. Whether or not Scouting's membership is growing and thriving, I think there'll still be need for consolidation.
Well, I would think that it's consolidation also makes more sense in a day and age when there are more telephones and more ways for people to communicate so that larger areas can work uh, together. And then, like you say, it's a matter of resources too and personnel. Uh,
Uh, even with Zoom, when Zoom first came out, and many of the video programs, that completely changed. And during COVID, we had to use those resources. Now people don't really give that up. So we have a monthly training meeting all across America called Roundtable, and which I know you guys are very familiar with. And we do online roundtables, and we did them in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic. And our volunteers are wanting us to continue to do them. I think it's a great thing for busy moms and dads and professionals, but you don't get that kind of personal feel of a local roundtable, or the scout spirit you feel when you're in a room full of like-minded people.
Well, it's been my experience that uh, people work all day, and then they kind of don't want to get in their car and go off 20 miles to a meeting and all that. They like the people they deal with, but it's just, there's so much. Time seems to be such an important element of everything. Do people have the time to do a thing? By the way, Elliott, how does the sound? Is the sound okay? I can't hear you right now.
A funny thing to ask as soon as I had my mic muted, but it sounds good.
All right.
Chuck, if you don't mind, not to make this sound too much like an interview, but I was looking around on the internet, and it says that you joined scouting professionally as a district executive in '98. Like you said, you're on your 29th year, and the scout executive at Flint River Council, which is my home council. And I wanted to ask, what was like? It sounds so interviewy. It really does. But
That's okay.
what was a turning point moment, or a breakthrough, or a challenge, or something that you faced at Flint River that helped you make a decision to go further instead of backing out? If that does that, you see what I'm asking?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I will say that turning point didn't happen when I was a scout executive, or there are several things at Flint River I can talk about. Probably that turning point, it might have been year 3 when I was promoted to management, and I realized I could impact a much larger area by recruiting competent executives, training them, and encouraging them. So I think might have been my turning point. I loved being a district executive, in the classroom, recruiting kids, recruiting parents, and a lot more granular feel with the program. It's boots on the ground. But I also got a lot out of recruiting executives and training them. Probably when I was selected to be the scout executive of Flint River Council, it was a little scary. I had worked in Orlando for 10 years, and I had a safety net. I knew everyone, both in the community and inside of scouting, and it was a big safety net. And when I went to Flint River, I had that too, but I didn't know it at the time. What you don't realize is that scouters are scouters everywhere, and their heart is to help. And so as I got to know the community, I realized, wow, I have the same thing I had in Orlando. I just need to get to know more scouters. So my turning point was probably when I was 3 years in. Then when I was a scout executive in Flint River, we had a fire at camp. Walker, you may remember this, but it was the training center, that's what we called it at the time, for NYLT and Scoutmaster Fundamentals, burned down. Really what it was a pole barn wrapped in plywood, but that's where we met, and that's where we had our food, where we cooked, and we had to do something. Like we were forced into doing something. And so we tried to raise money to build back. We had insurance, and the insurance was a lot. It was substantial. It was, we were able to build the building we had, plus for modern convenience, or modern standards. But there were several things that we needed to do at that time. So some volunteers and I kind of brainstormed. We went around the council doing listening sessions, and decided that there were several things that needed to be done. So we took all those things and we put them into a capital campaign. And it was probably about $1.2 million. It was going to build the dining hall back a little better, and we were going to build flush restrooms in all of the campsites over on the Camp Thunder side of camp. And we built this campaign, and I went to meet with a couple of foundations downtown, and they said, Chuck, this is great. We're glad you need bathrooms. We're sorry you had a fire, but we're interested in doing things that are transformational. We want to transform your operation. I want you to think about that and come back to us and present. And so I came back. We looked at our brainstorming a little more, and we realized there were some other things that we could do that were possible. So we built a campaign, and at the time, I had 4 board members that were, well, 3 board members and a district commissioner that were part of the Chick-fil-A headquarters staff. And one of them had compared our fire to something that Dan Cathy had experienced. And at the time, Dan was the chief operating officer, kind of kept his head down. And I met with Dan, and Dan said, yes, I'll do this campaign. At that point, it was a $3 million campaign. And he said, is this all you need? And I'm like, I have to say, it was probably that foundation that helped me dream a little bigger. And then meeting Dan Cathy, he let me dream unfettered by money, unfettered by really what would the ideal be? What would the Disney of camps be, or the Chick-fil-A of camps? And so we went back and dreamed about that, and we created a 2020 vision. Now we still went out to raise the first $3 million, and we were going to do 3 campaigns for about $20 million. I was there for the first campaign. We built new bathrooms. We built a beautiful training center on the Flint River side of our camp. And at that point, I had been there for 5.5 years. My commitment was 4, and councils had been calling to ask me to come interview, and I kept saying no. And finally, an old friend and former council president, Brian Upson, who is from Griffin, Georgia, said, Chuck, you've done so much here. Now's the time for you to take care of you and further your career. So that was my, probably as a scout executive, a couple of the most influential times. It was the fire that really sparked my imagination on what was possible.
Can y'all hear me okay? Let me cut in and say that I remember I read something about raising money once, and it said, don't be afraid to ask for a lot. I mean, you don't want to exaggerate, but there's, if you need, I mean, let's face it. Isn't that great that Dan said that? Is that, hey, is that all? And so if you'd have started out asking for 10 million, he might have said, yeah, sure. I don't know. But the point is to ask. Yeah, he might have laughed at you, but
we thought we were stranding when we had $1.2 million. But it would have been great, but it wouldn't have been transformational. So, and
yes,
the things we did end up doing transformational for camp.
All right. Hey, by the way, is the sound all right there, Elliott?
Yes, it cut for a second, but that's just internet
right.
lag. We're good.
I see. Well, I would like to say that Chuck's being, I think, modest, because I can remember his coming there. Chuck, we used to have a Scoutmaster night, and I would go to every Tuesday night at camp. I would go out and he would be talking to the Scoutmasters, and he would first start off asking them, what could we do better? And then he would have a staff member writing it down, like the food, it needs to be warmer or something like that. And he would get on it right then. And so that problem was usually solved that very night or the next day. And so he set a whole pattern that has stayed with us. And then he also went around and did that at the district meeting level. He asked people what's wrong, and then he dealt with it. And I think that's something that scouters all over the world need to think about, is get feedback right up front. Get people to say what could be better and listen to them. But Chuck just did a tremendous job with that, and it inspires confidence that people are not just saying, "Give us money and come to our camp." And by the way, I got to go home. That that sort of thing is. Chuck addressed that whole issue of feedback, and I guess you take this same message, that similar message, out to all these councils when you're talking
That's
to
a
them.
that's a great idea. It's hard. I'm writing this down because sometimes you forget where you came from. But feedback is a gift, and I've always felt that way. If the last thing you want is no feedback. When you don't have feedback, you really don't know if what you're doing is effective or desired or harmful. So I think that was just the way I was raised. Maybe I didn't have, I got a degree in biochemistry, so I didn't really have any business classes. Um, but I watched others and read a lot and figured, by gosh, if we can make their stay happy, they'll come back, and it'll impact their scouting program. So,
Well, I think that's one of the essences of scouting leadership. I think is when you don't have retention of boys or girls now, when you don't have that retention, it's because they're not having enough fun, or their parents don't feel like they're getting enough out of the program for the effort they put in just to take their kids to meetings and participate. So
that's absolutely fun. Fun is the first thing. Number one is safety. Number two, I'd say is fun. Hopefully, number three is you're learning something or you're teaching something to young people. But you have to do it with that carrot of fun. Without fun, why scout?
well, I can remember how your the the as you were there at camp at those Tuesday night meetings, I can remember the complaints got less and less and less over time. And so I mean it was remarkable. And I remarked on it just now. It's
Walker, I remember. I think you probably would remember this. I know I did. We had a session where I asked for feedback and complaints so we could get better, and people just kept giving us compliments. And I'm like, guys, really, I want some feedback so we can help. And somebody said the showers were too hot. And I'm like, there's a dial. You can just dial it back a little bit, but apparently the showers were fixed. It was just one pull string, and it was set at a certain temperature.
Yep.
And on a hot day, this scoutmaster wanted a cold shower. He didn't want a warm shower.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty. If that's as far as we can get in terms of things we're doing wrong, we're doing pretty good.
Chuck, I'd like for you to address something if you have, maybe you're not the right guy to talk about, but if we have people listening in at sooner or later to this particular podcast and from around the world, what are the opportunities for foreign scouts and foreign troops to come to the United States and go to scout camps here? I mean, I remember I had a Swedish boy that came to the work at the camp, and I had one. My best friend in Sweden came to Bert Adams back in 1967, and was on the staff there.
Sure. Well, we do have an international scout program, camp staff program, where we connect international scouts with local council camps, and we've been doing that for decades. We also host international troops at all the high adventure bases. It's very common to see troops from Asia or Europe, or even the Middle East, at Philmont, Sea Base, Northern Tier, or our new camp, the Summit at Bechtel in West Virginia. Even in Colorado, in my last stop as a scout executive, we had scout troops from the Middle East and Europe, back-to-back years, come all the way to Colorado to spend a week in the mountains.
That's wonderful. I just want I want the whole world to know. I tell the kids, you may remember, but I tell the scouts that when you're a scout, you own this place. You own Philmont. You own the Northern Tier. You're now a property owner. So let's take care of it. And I don't think a lot of parents even grasp the scope of that, or the scope of having brothers and sisters all around the world who are scouts.
Absolutely. That's a good point.
Yeah.
We've hosted the World Jamboree at the Summit Bechtel Reserve. I think that was just before COVID. That might have been 2019. So my daughter was on staff that year, and I want to say we had somewhere around 30,000 scouts. It was quite remarkable.
Well, you might remember that Baden Powell went there and was out on Brown Sea Island. And there were two Baden Powells. One was John Muir, and then I was the other one. And we had a wonderful time there. It was a remarkable. And my Swedish friend, who was a scout, and I met him in 1963 at the World Jamboree in Greece. And his son worked at Camp Thunder back in the 90s for a summer. And then his granddaughter was going to be there at 2019 at Bechtel. And so I just had to go. I just had to make sure that I did my BP act up there.
Well, Walker, can I tell a story about you?
You can tell, well, if it's true, and if I don't have to sue you.
I think we talked about it, but this came from a mom of a scout in your troop, and I love the story. I've told the story my entire career, but it was the way you taught fire safety. And the mom described you hanging toilet tissue from the scout's back pocket down to the floor, lighting it on fire and saying, "Stop, drop, and roll."
Well, that's pretty much right, but it was not toilet paper. It was a roll. It was a roll of newspaper, and you stick it in the back of the pants. But it's best to do it in the wintertime, and so that keep people are wearing numerous things of clothing.
Layers, right.
But you know, the kids, boys particularly, like a sense of danger. They don't. I mean, you as a leader, you don't want them to get hurt, but there's a challenge there that some boys, you light it and they immediately stop, drop, and roll and put it out. And others let it get a little bigger and then stop, drop, and roll. But I've never had one get burned. And
well, I know there were many moms well, dads absolutely appreciated that, and many moms did too. There was just one that was like, "That's a little dangerous."
Yeah. Well, I like, you could say those towers, climbing is dangerous.
For sure.
I mean, even if we have, canoeing and kayaking can be dangerous, and all kinds of things can be dangerous, but scouts have to be prepared to meet danger as best they can. And Baden Powell keeps saying that the two most important skills we have that we try to do is life-saving and first aid. And I think that's extremely important. But for that matter, there's so many scout skills that are important and are not available in the school systems of the world. So why don't you address that for a minute if I haven't caught you off guard there? And
well, I can say that we inside scouting see ourselves as partners with the school system and education. A young person who's in a scout troop will spend about the same amount of time in scouting if they are active on all of their troops campouts and summer camp as they will in school. So scoutmasters and assistant scoutmasters can have a profound impact on the education of young people. And what we find is that when a young person is in scouting, their grades are better, their conduct is better, they're more helpful, and in general, they're more cheerful. So, we do have partnerships with education systems all over the country, through superintendents on down to principals and even teachers. And I'd say in probably about 60% of the schools, we are welcome and lauded and viewed as that partner I described. In some school systems, they think they have all the answers. and their job is to protect kids from the outside world. And I think it's those school districts that probably and kids probably need us most.
When I was in scouting as a scout and an explorer scout, there was much stronger a strong connection with the military. I mean, I can remember going to the Army Ranger Camp in North Georgia in the middle of the winter, and and the military, the scouts were always a great source of soldiers and sailors and Marines, and and I hope that. How's that going these days? Is there a
Sure,
reawakening?
back in I don't know, it was 2014 or 2015. We had our last jamboree at Fort AP Hill, Virginia. We were uncertain with the current administration at the time that we would be able to come back. So we purchased property in West Virginia, and now we have our own camp. What we realized is that that partnership with the military was worth probably millions of dollars that we have to do somehow now without the military. But we have built a relationship with the West Virginia National Guard. They do drills on our property, and now they come out and help support the jamboree. Something that we actually really need, and it's something that their training requires. So it's we formed a good partnership. Um, Scouts who earn the rank of Eagle get a bump up to their first grade when they join the military. Um, Probably it used to be about 50% of the graduating class from the academies were Eagle Scouts from military academies all over the U.S. I don't know what that number is now. I'm sure it's probably north of 20%. But when the candidates have Eagle Scout by their name, typically they're put on the top of the pile. I hear that with colleges, all over America, parents coming back and saying, "Hey, the thing that made the difference for my child was being an Eagle Scout. It wasn't their grades, it wasn't their extracurricular activities. It was when they found out that their child was an Eagle Scout that they said, "You tell us about that experience. That's what we really are concerned about." And they're welcomed into colleges all over the U.S. But back to the military, I will say that we expect a continued partnership with the military for our jamborees. And, I know locally in Colorado, we partner with the military for several projects. I will say that we do a popcorn sale, and we provide tens of thousands of popcorn products that we take to the local military base. They package them and ship them overseas to military bases all over the world. So we enjoy that. We also have a partnership with the Air Force Academy, where they have a football game they invite us to. We have a camp out at the base. And if ever we wanted a speaker, they would be quick to send us someone. So
That's great. I keep thinking how Baden-Powell, when it started off, there was a boys' brigade in England, but he didn't want the scouts to be essentially a paramilitary outfit, uh, even though his original Aids to Scouting book was designed for troops to hone their skills outdoors. But nevertheless, it has been such a great benefit to the military services throughout the years. I can think of any number of stories of guys that were on an island after their ship was sunk and using their Morse code skills. And speaking of which, Baden Powell, the new in his new existence, keeps saying that he thinks that Eagle Scout maybe is a bit overrated because the main thing is for us to have first class scouts and first class citizens. And but on the other hand, of course, we encourage kids to go up and get a lot of and get rank advancement. I just wonder sometimes if maybe it's gotten too easy to get Eagle Scout. and I'm not sure. That's a
Well, the rank requirements haven't gotten any easier. I promise you that. I think some troops put a little more emphasis on it. My troop, I don't think did. When I was a kid, we probably had 5 or 6 Eagle Scouts a year, with
yep.
a solid 60 active Scouts in our troop. But I was a two-term SPL. I was in the Order of the Arrow, and I'm a Life Scout. And I don't have regrets that I
Yep.
didn't make Eagle. I do have 2 sons that are both Eagle Scouts. Um, Had I not encouraged them, they probably would both be Life Scouts. They
Yeah.
got really close, and then got in high school, and kind of got distracted, and they needed some encouragement. But I think
Somebody
that's okay.
and somebody says it's a matter of fumes. I think that's what Elliott was going to say is perfume and gas fumes.
Car fumes and perfumes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say like your sons, I didn't eventually earn Eagle Scout, but I was a Life Scout for a long time, and it was because, like you said, you were an OA and very involved, 2-term SPL. I was a 3-term SPL because I was the only older Scout for quite some time in my troop, just due to retention was a problem in my particular city where I grew up, and uh, I was so overstretched as an older scout. I was not really involved in OA, but I was an NYLT and summer camp staff. Any staffing opportunity down at Camp Thunder, I was there for it from the time I was 14 and until the time I was 18. So, and I think I earned Life Scout when I was 15, and the all the way up. I had my Eagle Board of Review scheduled, and it got canceled due to it didn't have anything to do with me. So I actually had my 18th birthday, and then just a few days later is when I got my Board of Review and earned the rank of Eagle Scout, which is one of the only ways. So that's how, by the skin of my teeth, I was right there and just holding on to nothing. And I was very close to not getting it at all.
Mine were
So
17 and a half also. So
it's
right
nerve
there
wracking.
towards the end. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were very involved all over the place as well. Were they not?
One of them was. One of them was. One of them
Mm-hmm.
was really into sports,
Hmm.
and didn't have quite enough time for scouting.
Hmm.
Um, but it's okay. I
Hmm.
think scouting and sports is a perfect blend. We
Yeah.
actually have done studies where scouting has a profound positive impact. Sports has a positive impact mostly. Sometimes it
Mostly.
has a negative impact, but combined, scouting and sports has a positive impact even beyond scouting.
Hmm.
So I think it's a great thing that you could be an athlete and be in sports at the same, or be in scouting at the same time.
Hmm.
Of course, that's one of my little modern gripes is that people have these traveling sports teams that take the kids away from the weekend camp out because, of course, they just schedule one tournament after another. And so it can really quite interfere because a child has an obligation to support his team by being there. And of course, these most of these travel teams are not inexpensive. Do what? By the way, I was going to say, y'all were talking about. I was looking at my little scout badges today, and so there's my uh, there's my honor patch, my God and Country patch, and there's my Eagle Scout thing, and it's what 60 years old now, something like that. 62 years old.
Wow.
I've
I was,
got several trinkets. I don't know if I want to bring them all down, but they're all right here by my desk. I could.
Well, it's wonderful. Chuck, talk about membership now, and is it going back up, or is it kind of low and going down, or? And I hate to be
Well,
negative, but what's the deal?
for sure. Well, I'll tell you the positive. By the end of 2025, we will have had over 250,000 new members join scouting
Wow.
in Scouting America. So
Hmm.
that's a phenomenal amount. I'd love it to be a million.
Yes.
But a quarter million is a pretty confident amount. We've got to figure out ways to retain scouts for a longer period of time. Our average is probably about 36 months. But we have a lot of kids that stay in the program from 6 to 16. So that means there are a lot of kids that stay in for 3, 4, 5 months or 12 months. So, being
Well, I've
able to retain scouts may be the issue that we need to tackle.
well, I've stayed in from 6 to 77, so that's not bad.
One of our success stories, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's right.
Um,
Gabe,
but but if you look at membership, it's been from the time you were in Scouts till now, it's been a steady decline. During COVID, we had a drastic decline, and we're kind of recovering from that drastic decline where we dipped below a million, and we're probably right at between 900,000 and a million. If you measure scouting at one point in time, like any particular month, we're at say 900,000 scouts. If you look at a year at a glance and measure everybody who's been in the program during the year, we're at about 1.25 million.
well, what percentage of those are girls these days?
About 22%. We announced that girls could join Cub Scouting, I think, in 2018,
Yeah,
2018. And
yeah.
then in 2020, we announced that girls could join um, Scouts BSA, which is the traditional Boy Scout program, in a same-sex troop. That was the year COVID hit, so it was a little bit tough. Our coming out party was done through COVID. So we had a lot of Cub Scouts, the girls that were excited in the beginning that didn't quite make it through COVID. We had a lot of Girl Scouts, I'm sorry, girls in scouting that joined Scouts BSA that did make it through. It was a lot easier to be in our older youth program because you could do things outside. Um, they could communicate and earn badges online, which you really can't do with the Cub Scouts. So about 22%, and that's kind of spread out between three programs: Cub Scouts, Scouts PSA, which is the traditional Boy Scout program, and venturing.
It's my understanding that scouting is doing very well in Southeast Asia and in parts of Africa, and it seems to have a certain vigor in Europe, at least in on the continent, not necessarily in Britain, and uh, and so I'm wondering if you know much about that.
I haven't really delved into scouting outside the U.S. I've been in my role for about 5 months, and I've been drinking from a water hose, and I haven't kind of lifted my eyes up to look outside the U.S. honestly,
Yeah.
but it's something I need to do.
Well, I keep thinking that by us reaching out to them and them reaching out to you, I'm glad to hear that these whole troops are coming and taking advantage of those of our sea base and Philmont and all that. That's great. And the kids, you remember it in 2019 up at Bechtel, those foreigners, those foreign troops just loved being in the United States, and I was amazed at how well the Americans handled the logistics of setting up and taking down Bechtel. It was just astonishing how they could put together whole camps of 8,000 people, and they have
And it
all
might have been
those
the third largest city in West Virginia during the Jamboree.
and that
It
and
was pretty
people
big.
and remember how the kids all love that the West Virginia theme songs. They just
Yeah.
love those, the popular songs. Uh,
John Denver.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
I remember that, and as Baden Powell had his picture taken about 10,000 times. I'll send you a copy or two of that.
No, that would be great.
Yeah, and so all right, now if you were to be giving advice on adults around about standing with and helping their counsel, what would you say on that? In addition to fundraising,
Well, I mean, I think there are so many things you could do. The number one thing is probably get fully trained, take advantage of all the online trainings. Take advantage of Wood Badge. It's a phenomenal leadership training course. And through Wood Badge, you'll write a ticket, is what we call it. And it's basically you create a list of things you'll commit to do over the next 18 months to improve scouting in your own unit, and maybe the district, or the council. And by doing that, by going through Wood Badge, becoming fully trained, and working your ticket, not only will you help us, but you'll help us in things that you've seen that need to be improved, and you'll improve them. So I would just encourage people to go through Wood Badge, and then naturally the thing that you could help us with will reveal itself.
If you don't mind,
That
I have a question too. It's specifically to you and who you are and what you do. What advice would you give to younger scouters, or adult scouters, or even scouts who have a desire to go into Scouting America as a career path or long term?
As a profession.
Yes.
Well, I would encourage all young people to get involved in scouting, and if you can do it as a career, even better. I can tell you that scouting has paid me back 1,000 times, not monetarily, but in things that matter like the heart, and opportunities to meet some of the best people in America, people who care, both give of their time and their talent and treasure. So the skills you need to be a competent district executive or professional, I would say very comfortable public speaking, quick with a song, or cheer. And people think this is like I'm making a joke about this, but I would have the council board sing an action song, because you have to feel scouting spirit sometimes to be able to communicate it to parents. So I would always be ready to pray. I would always be ready to sing a song. I'd have a handful of games that I could entertain kids with, and I'd probably have a handful of stories that I could heartwarm the parents with. And I like to tell. So that's what I would tell you. I would say, I think there's a requirement that you have a 4-year degree. My degree is in biochemistry. I've known people with degrees in music that have been very successful scouting professionals, and folks that have MBAs that are very successful scouting professionals, and probably everything in between. I think having a heart for young people, someone who really likes social connection, and I don't mean the social connection on Facebook or Instagram or whatever those social sites are. I mean a real in-person, face-to-face connection with people. It used to be, you had to see people in person. And then we decided, okay, you can just call people on the phone. And then it was, okay, you can just email people. Now we've got the Zoom, and so we don't really see people in person anymore. But I would say for folks that have a real desire to get to know people, you got to do it in person. You have to have the time before the meeting to talk, and the time after the meeting to kick rocks and get to know each other a little bit better. But so you have to be someone who likes to be around people. We call it a high I. There's a Briggs and Stratton method, where it kind of determines what your character traits are. And for people that have a real longing for personal connection, that's a really good thing. For people who can be dominant, don't have to be, but can be dominant, you see something that needs to be done and you find a way to do it. I think that's important. People who can get things done. And then I'd say that people who are organized, whether it's running a council camporee, now you may not be running a council camporee, you have a volunteer doing it. So you're really teaching organization to someone. And it might be that someone's organizing a camporee and you're learning organization from them. It goes both ways. But that's what I would say. But I would encourage young people. Now, you're not going to get rich. This is not a get rich thing. It is a labor of love. Scouting pays like teachers, except we demand. We probably my wife's a teacher, so in the evening she's grading papers, and on weekends she's planning her next week. And scouting's no different. You'll work a 40-hour week, and then on weekends, you'll spend it on a camp out. On a camporee, you're the first person there, you're the last person to leave. You're invited to every blue and gold banquet in the county, and you don't want to let people down, so you show up. It's a great way to get fed for free. But you're kind of like a pastor to a lot of scouters that see you as the expert, and you have to make yourself the expert. And sometimes it's on the way to the meeting that you have to think about it, make a call, and figure out how to be the expert. But that's what I would say.
That was pretty thorough. I'll tell you that's almost daunting when you look at it. But I realize that that's like saying that here's a pumpkin you have to eat right now, but no, you eat it bite by bite. Yeah.
That's right. It's so satisfying, and you can do this as an adult leader. You don't have to be a scouting professional to visit a school, encourage young people to come out and join scouting. Tell them about all the fun you're going to have in your year of scouting. And the next night, you see the cafeteria fill up with 30 or 40 families, and then you convince the parents to sign up and be leaders. Next thing you know, you're training the adult leaders, and you see them at a camp out with their kids, and they're straight in their kids' uniform, and they're making them walk in a line. They're doing the scout sign and salute. Really gratifying.
I have given a talk about how meetings should be run, and you might have an ideal meeting that people can look at online where people show up on time, they have an opening ceremony, and they have song, and then they have all that stuff, and so what I've often pointed out was that right at the end of the meeting, you end up with a song like "God Bless America" or something like that. And especially Cub Scout parents, they get in there and they're going, "This is where I want my children to be." Because by that time they've seen the fun, they've seen the organization, they've seen the skits, they've seen kids succeed or not succeed on the skits, and singing. And I think singing is extremely important. You were talking about having a song
Always.
always. And it's just like, why do they sing in church? They sing to unify the congregation. And that's what that singing does. And so you end with that wonderful song that where they walk out of there and it's one thing I like about the Scouts that I think people ought to understand who listen to this is that Scouts have it right when they say we start on time and we end on time. And that ending on time, I think, is very critical. So people, I think you want to end a meeting or a story or a district meeting or whatever. You want to end it before people are just squirming.
Looking at your watch. Yeah.
That's right. Just like I heard about the guy that had a cut on his chin when he was the preacher, and they said, and he said, "You're wondering what it is? I was thinking about my sermon this morning, and I cut myself." And he found in the collection plate a little note that says, "Next week, think about your chin and cut your sermon."
Oh, very clever. Very clever.
Yeah. Well, what else Elliott, are there any important things? And Chuck, do you have some final remarks that you can tell the world about what you do and what your role as operations vice president is?
Well, I could tell them, but it'd probably bore them if I told them about my role. But I will say that scouting's values are family values. Scouting values, I believe, are American values. They never get tired or old. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. When you think about the scout law, those people think, oh, you're teaching morals to kids. Whose morals are they? Well, you think about that. Those 12 words are universal. You can look at any country in the world, and those are words that parents want their kids to learn and know what they mean and put to practice in their life. Second, I would say we say duty to God, country, family, and self. And I think in that order, it's the right order. And I think that so many people right now want their kids to learn duty and to learn what honor means. And there is not an organization besides Scouting that teaches it, whether it's the Scouting America or the Girl Scouts of the USA or Scouting in Britain or across the world. I think that when more people are giving a handout to help rather than helping themselves up, the world's a better place. I think if all the politicians in America live by the Scout Oath and Law, we'd be a much better country. That's what I would say.
That is a
Parents, get your
fantastic
kids
statement.
involved in scouting. And then I would say,
Amen.
amen. Then I'd say, parents,
Amen.
volunteer for scouting because you want to be able to give the program you want your scouts to have, and who better to trust with your young people than you? I've been a PAC committee chair for 4 years, a Cub master for 5, and I've been a chief fundraiser for a troop for 2 years, selling popcorn. And I can tell you, there is no greater gift that you can give to yourself than be a leader in scouting. You sign up and you do it because you want your kid to have a program, and then what you realize is that you are the leader in a community, and it makes you want to be better, and then you are better. You're better for it. You learn things about organization that you never would have learned otherwise. You learn things about including people that you really would probably not have thought about. There are so many things that scouting teaches parents, both it helps them be a better parent and helps them be a better employee, helps them be a better manager, and helps them be a better citizen of the United States. So I would say scouting is the solution to America's problems. I would have said that 10 years ago, and it's so true today.
Is that
Thank
the
you.
fire? Sorry, you spoke earlier about a fire that kind of happened that made you want to, not the literal fire, of course, from the dining hall, but that keeps you going. Is that in and of itself the fire that keeps you continuing to do this and do it to your fullest ability and the best of your abilities?
I would say that it's in my blood. The thing that
There
really
you go.
drives me now probably is wanting a pack or a troop in every town across America, and a quality unit. One that you'd want to be a part of, one that you'd want your kids to be a part of, and figuring out how to get every leader trained, every leader excited, every leader thinking, how can I make this meeting special? What can I impart? What wisdom can I impart to the kids this week? When we have that, scouting is magical, and scouting can do the things like change America. But it all starts with leaders, and it starts with us. A professional like me or a volunteer like you, deciding that it's important enough to give time to commit, and to share.
Wonderful.
This is wonderful.
I feel like we should sing "God Bless America" now.
Well,
I'm
well,
just kidding.
well,
I'm kidding.
I understand that, but it's or sing some song that's so international. When I was doing my programs that Baden Powell would talk to the scouts and parents up at the World Jamboree, he'd say, and at the end, you're singing one of those songs, and one of them is "Old Lang Syne." And because that's everybody in the world knows it, but they don't speak Lowland Scott. And what Old Lang Syne means is the good old days. And then there's that popular song, "These Are the Good Old Days." And so I say, and right now, kids, right now, today, here at this campfire, this place, this reservation, this is the good old days, and you'll remember them all of your days. And so that singing that when the parents go out at the end of the meeting, or for that matter, all around the world. So I would sing it for you, but
Hey, look, in all seriousness, I'll sing a little song to sing us out if that's okay with both of you guys.
Great.
that's just fine.
That would
with
be
us.
wonderful.
at the end of our campfires at the end of the week at Camp Thunder, we sang a song. Somebody said it was Baden Powell's favorite song. I'm not sure if it really was or not, but I'll sing it for you now to close our show. And before I do that, thank you, Chuck, for being
Thank
on
you.
tonight so much. This has
It's
been
my
great.
pleasure. My pleasure. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, y'all ready?
We're ready.
Softly falls the light of day as our campfire fades away. Silently each scout should ask, have I done my daily task? Have I kept my honor bright? Can I guiltless sleep tonight? Have I done and have I dared everything to be prepared? Thank you, gentlemen.
Yay. Good night.
Thanks, Elliott. Thanks, Walker, so much. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing this posted all over the place. Send me a link and I'll post it on my own Facebook page.
Please do. Please do.